Thanks, China.
And you're on mute, Mukesh.
Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen and I am audible.
Yes.
Okay, so today I'm going to cover the forward 5 key highlights and the product updates. When I talk about the product updates, I would be mostly talking about that what are the significant updates in the UiPath from a product point of view, that what exactly are the things which are new and how should a developer use and utilize them. So just moving forward, this is a bit of snapshot about myself. My name is Mukesh Kala. I have a total of 8+ years of experience, 2 times UiPath MVP. I have a YouTube channel called Tutorials by Mukesh Kala, and I have a website called mukeshkala.com where you can find more about myself. Talking about the forward 5, those people who don't know what exactly is a forward 5 and what updates we are giving, at Forward 5, UiPath brought together the automation expert and practitioners all over the world. UiPath shared the vision of the future of automation, where you have people speaking from industry, from the UiPath side, from the expert, from the product side, sharing their journeys, experiences, and success stories. So this was the event which was called the Forward 5. If I just go back and talk what exactly I understood from the event was that the first one was by our co-CEO Rob, where he explained that how UiPath customers are getting more from the reimagining their operating model. He just shared an example of a company called Uber, the rideshare company predicts, which says that UiPath automation will deliver a 350% of return on investment in a year. In a separate session, Leslie, the principal analyst for Forrester, discussed how the S-curve will run through the automation technologies and setting up the new digital values across the automation. So one theme which we could get is that now people are moving towards a new reimagined operating model in the automation era. When I talk about this operating model, this is what I have been got from the slide, that we have something, an operating model, then operating model such as prove, establish, expand, and scale. These are different parameters such as executive sponsors, investment model, and idea pipeline. So now this was the complete 4 stages scale to automation agenda, which was published at the Forward 5. If you want to know more, at the end, we are going to share the links to that where you can read about each and everything in detail. The next key highlight was how exactly the companies are getting the transformational outcomes. So this is a quote from our co-CEO, Daniel Dines, where he said that everyone understand now that automation is a big practice, and it's better to have a platform that supports the end-to-end goal. So if you see on the screen, these are some of the companies such as Puma, which has got a 50% increase in the supply chain management efficiency. DHL, we have Cigna, Xerox, and many other companies. So several other UiPath customer has shared their gallery of customer achievement. So at Forward 5, there was a section of customer achievement where we have customers from all over UiPath just talking about what they have accomplished from UiPath. At Forward 5, there was a new term which was introduced and which we could hear was UiPath Business Automation Platform. This was something which people heard for the first time, and they could see that what exactly is the business platform automation. So I'll just move to the next slide where I'm just going to talk about how does this business automation platform look like. You have the discover phase, we have the automate, and then we have the operate phase. So this actually was taken into 3 chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, and the chapter 3. Chapter 1 centered on the RPA with UI automation, which was using the selectors. Then you have the chapter 2, which began 3 years ago, where the vision was to have end-to-end automation supported by the entire automation lifecycle. Now, the chapter 3 for us is the UiPath Business Automation Platform. Now, what exactly is that business automation platform? This is what the business automation platform look like. right? With market leading capabilities in every stage of the automation cycle. UiPath has a vast number of product which is spanned across discovery phase, automate phase, and the operate phase. When I move further into the 2022.10 updates, you would notice that UiPath has got significant update in each and every delivery cycle, right? This is also one new product which was introduced, that new Studio Web. There is something which is called UiPath Studio Web, which we could heard, but now we have something which is called a reinfer, a new member in the UiPath family, which brings the communication of the mining capabilities to the UiPath platform. So in the future communication, we would hear more about the reinfer. What exactly is this? It is an AI and NLP thing which actually automate and interprets every message in the real time, right? So reinfer was something which we could see in getting popped up during the forward 5. So this was just of the key highlights. At the end of the session, I'm going to share you about what exactly are the things which where you can read more about the forward 5. The next section for today is that what exactly is there in the 2022.10 release and why it is an important update, right? So the first thing, 2022.10 release focuses mainly on 4 areas. The first one is how do you rapidly build your environment with the business processes? You have a new foundation for continuous discovery. Then you have an enhanced platform to give more power to the automation use cases. And at the end, enterprise grade most IT demanding IT solution. If you see this complete chart, discover, build, manage, run, and engage. These are the complete phases on an RPA lifecycle. At the bottom, these are the tools which are available with UiPath. Say, for example, for discover, we have automation hub, process mining, task mining. For the build, we have all this tool and so on and so forth. In the in this recent update of 2022.10, you would see that all these products getting touched and getting a huge impact, which will actually go and meet all these 4 areas. It will touch all these 4 areas themes. Today, what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how exactly it is focusing more on the studio part, because that is where actually we do and write a lot of code, right? So I'm going to show you the significant update which has happened on the UiPath Studio. Okay, so I'll just go and exit my slide for a while. Okay, and I'm just going to start with the UiPath. Okay, so I hope you guys can see my screen. So this, if you can see, I am on the 2022.10 version of UiPath, right? So how I can see, you can see it at the bottom, 2022.10.3. Now there are something which would actually very good to see. If I simply go to the settings, okay, in the help, the first thing is you would see something which is called a quick tutorial. If I enable the quick tutorial, what would happen? Studio would pop up something which is called start your UiPath journey here. This is applicable both to Studio as well as Studio X. In case you are absolute beginner to this automation world, you just have to follow these steps. So start your UiPath journey, I say start. This is a guided access. So I say that this is a new project. I just put here something like this. New project. And I just create. Now this guided access is not only restricted to creating of the project, but it will also guide you to create one solution, debug it, run it, and deploy it to the orchestrator. At any point of time, in case you feel that, no, I don't want the guided access, that can be easily stopped. But let's say if you want to again go and see how, if you are an absolute beginner and you don't have any idea where to start, you just come here and you get this pop-up. I say quick tour. I'll just wait for this dependencies to get, and you can see I can have a quick tour of the complete studio. I can have the guided access for build, test, run automation, and then I can have a guided access for the publishing my project as well, right? This is the new thing which is available in the 2022.10 and is applicable both to Studio as well as Studio X. Okay, I'll just wait for this to load. And meanwhile, this is loading. I just want to show you some of the other things which you could see. Let me just go and start the presentation again. Meanwhile, my solution is loading. The one thing here which you can see here is we have something which is called UiPath Studio, which is sitting on our desktop. Then we have something which is called UiPath Studio Web, where the complete Studio is opening on the website. You just simply go to cloud.uipath.com and you get the Studio Web. With this version, you can start your development in the Studio Web, and then you get an option which says open in desktop. So you leave your automation, start your automation then, and then you can actually go and say start in my desktop, and it will take that automation from there and it will open in your local UiPath Studio. What is Studio Web? It is a web-based platform canvas that enable you to actually go and develop the automation with no IT dependency, no installation, and you can start immediately. Studio Web is the recommended tool for getting started with the automation, and it is getting continuous update as you go forward. We can easily switch between Studio, Studio X, and the Studio Web. Okay, so this is one of the thing which is available. With the new 22.10 update, there are more integration services which are added to the UiPath tool to expand the connector catalog. So if you're looking on the screen, these are all the new connectors, or I would say the existing connector catalog which is available. You can easily connect to Bamboo HR, Act 365, Google Docs. All these are available. So the integration game has been strong in the new release. When we talk strictly about the Studio, there is a new thing which is available, which is called a data manager, which is a game changer, I would say, during the development. So now if I come back here, you would notice that my quick tour has been paused for me. What do I want to do? I want to say start. I want to have a quick tour of my Studio. I'm absolute beginner. I don't know. I just say, give me a quick tour and I say start. You would notice UiPath is telling me that this is the project panel, giving me all the details. Next, it is going to give me about this is the designer panel. It will take me through all these things. And once I want to stop it, I simply close here and I say skip this step. I will just close this from the top and I say yes. In case you want to again visit the quick help, you just go to help, and here you have something which is called quick tutorial. Okay. Now, if you see here, this is pretty pretty exactly the old thing, with a difference that on the right hand side you have something which is called a data manager. Now, what exactly is this data manager? Data manager is a one-stop shop for managing your variables, arguments, connection, namespaces, constants, all the orchestrator, everything at once. If you are a developer who is coming from a previous experience, you would notice that previously I have one argument panel, one variable panel, one imports panel. Arguments where this orchestrator resources were somewhere lying here in the resources. With this release, everything is clubbed up into this guy, which is called the data manager. When you have to start, when you first time start with the data manager, this looks something like this, absolutely blank. Now, how do I start with the data manager? The first thing is, let me just go and pin this here. You have to click on this button, which says filter, and you have to select what do you want to see in the data manager. So let's say I want to see all of these bits. Now, as you can see, I can manage variables, arguments, constant, resources, entities, process, assets, queues, connection, namespace, everything is there in the data manager itself, right? I no need to go anywhere else to work on these things. Now, if I talk about the top two, which is variables and argument, let's say I am writing an automation and I'm only working with variables and arguments. I don't want to see others. I simply go here and I remove all these bits, right? Removed. I just want to create variables. Now, if you notice here at the bottom, I do not have the variables thing here. You might be thinking, how should I create a variable? I don't have the variable and the arguments panel here. That is because my project is working in the data manager mode, right? If you want to have the data manager, as well as this variable and the panel here, you just go to the home. Okay. In the settings, design, you have something which is this guy, show data manager panel only. For me, it is on. As soon as I toggle it off and I say reload, now what would happen? I am instructing UiPath that I want to work on the data manager, but I want to see the old panel as well, right? But for me, I personally believe if you have the data manager, you won't actually require the older variable argument and the import panel, right? Now, if you see, I have got the variables argument and the import panel. Okay, let's try to write a simple automation. I'll just go here and I create a new sequence. Let's call this sequence. I'll go to the properties. I say that this is my main sequence, right? Okay, I'll go here and create one more sequence after that. This, let me call it as first sequence maybe. Okay, and after that, I'll just create one more sequence. And this I'm going to call as second sequence. Okay. Now you might notice that I have a main XAML, which I have three sequences, first sequence, second sequence, and this main. Now to create the variable, one obvious way is to go and use this variable panel, but I don't want to use that. I want to use this panel, right? So let me quickly go to the variables. And if you see here, there is a button which says new variable. When I click on that, you would see this is asking me the name of the variable. Let's say I am creating a variable for name. The data type, it is exactly the same. Which type of data you want to have the variable? I want to say string. Now the important thing is, what is the scope? Is it the main first sequence or the second sequence? Okay, this is main and this is main, right? So let me just rename this sequence to something else, right? So I would just say it maybe internal main, right? So that we are able to differentiate. My bad. Okay, fine. So now when I am creating a variable, it is asking me, what is the scope of the variable? Is it at the main? Is it at this level, or this level? I say I want to create a variable only for the first sequence. That's it. Do you have a default value? Yes, I do have a default value, UiPath. That is how easy it is to create variables in the data panel. Now, if you notice, this variable is now created for me here. Similarly, if I want to create argument, I can simply go here and create an argument. But what exactly is special about this thing? The special thing about the data manager is that, for example, I tell you guys that you have to create 5 different variables. So previously, I used to go here, create the variable, set the scope. With this new update, you just simply have to go to the variables, right click on it, and there is an option which says bulk create variables. This open a wizard and str underscore, let's say last name, right? Then I can create a variable for age. I say integer underscore age. It is of type integer. What is the scope? It is for the first sequence. This is for the second sequence. This is for the main. Like this, I can create if I want to give default value. And that's it. That is how easy it is to create the variables. Same goes for the argument. As of now, if you see, I am not seeing the argument window here. That is because from here, we are only selected variables. If I select arguments, you are seeing the arguments as well. Same fashion, I want to create argument. Click on this button. Give the name of the argument. Let's say this is in underscore name. It's an input type of argument. It would be of type string. This is a required value. And what do you want to call it, right? Similarly, if I want to create an out argument, I'll just go here and I say out underscore, let's say class. I say out. And since this is out type of argument, you cannot have the default value. You can actually go and bulk create the argument also from here. Once created, you have always has an option to change it here. You can change it to in, out. And one thing you would notice here, we don't have that option of property, which was available in the previous version. So you have in, out, and in, out. So multiple variables and arguments can be created directly from this window by clicking on this button. One other way is you see this top button here. You just click on this button, say new, and you got the new variable and the new arguments, which opens the same window which we are seeing here. right? So that actually you can use it to create the variables. Now, what is the other interesting thing which we see in this window apart from creating and bulk creating? If you just simply go here and right click on this one, variables, you would have an option which says sort by. I can actually go and sort this variable by different things, such as I want to sort it by name. Now you would notice all the variables are sorted by name. I want to sort it by, let's say, type. You would see all the string variables are together, all the integer variables are together. I want to sort it by scope. This is interesting. You would notice that it will scope the variables. It will actually sort the variable in the wider scope. So first it will show you the variables which are from the main. Next, it will show you the variables which are from the first sequence, and then all the variables from the second sequence, right? So that way you can actually go and organize the variables here. The same is applicable for the arguments as well. You can just right click on the arguments and sort by. Arguments does not have the scope because it does not have the scope, right? So we can sort it by the direction in, out, in, out. It will automatically sort the arguments here. So that you can actually use whenever you are creating a huge automation and you have this thing. One interesting feature which I like about this one is filter by. Okay, not actually filter by, this one. Before that, I just want to show you this option here. You have this option at the top which tells you group the item by the scope. So just keep an eye on the variable. If you see here, string name, integer name, and the last name, these are the three variables which I have created in different scopes. If I just click on this button, which says group item by scope, what would happen? See, you notice now all the variables are now grouped as per the scope. So it is saying me that Mukesh, in your main, you have this variable, in your first sequence, you have this variable, and in your second sequence, you have this variable. I want to return to the previous option. I just toggle this off. Where exactly I can use this option? Let's say I'm writing an automation and I want to see which all are the variables which are there for me to use in the first sequence. I can just go here and click on this guy, which says first sequence, and that's it. There is one other important thing and interesting thing which is in this data manager panel is this guy, which is called sync with the active scope. Now, what is this thing? If you see here, my mouse is clicked on the complete workflow. If I click on this button, which says sync with the active scope, you don't see any change, right? Because it is showing all the variable. As soon as I click on the first sequence, you would notice that it is showing me only the variables which are relevant to first sequence. When I click on the second sequence, it will show me the variables which are from the second sequence. See the change, right? Like this. It is actually syncing your automation canvas with the active window. So all the variables are shown as per this one. So these two options you can use when you have a big piece of automation you are trying to write and you actually want to see that what exactly is the scope for which all things, right? So this is an interesting thing which we have got. I hope you are following along with me. There is one more update which UiPath has got, which is called a global variable, right? So if you are someone who is coming from a little bit idea from the previous UiPath automation journey, I have this sequence which is called main sequence. Let's say I have one more sequence. I will call this as a new sequence. Okay. Now, if I want to pass the data from the main sequence to the new sequence, ideally, I had to use something which is called arguments, right? We create arguments, we set the direction in, out, and everything. Now, let's say I want to create something and I want to pass the data between these two XAMLs. All I have to do is just go to the variable and create the variable. I'll call this as the global variable maybe. And in the data scope, data type, sorry, first you select the data type. This is of string. And in the scope, you have this option which says global. As soon as I click global, it is asking me what is the value you want to give. So let's say in the global variable, I want to write something called hello, I am global variable. Okay. Now you notice I am creating this in the main sequence. As soon as you create a global variable, what would happen? In the variable thing, you would see a small circle, or I would say a earth kind of world kind of symbol, which signifies that this is a global variable. Now, what is the benefit here? This name, age, and the last name are applicable only to the main workflow. But if I take my automation to the new sequence, which I just created, you would see I have already got the global variable here. How cool is that, right? I can actually go and try to print the message in a message box, something like this. And let's try to use the global variable, right? So I use here global variable. Now, if I point the mouse, you would notice that this is a global variable. The name of the global variable is global var, which we have given. That's it, right? I have created a global variable, which is now available across everything. To validate, I'll just go here and I say run the file. Right now, you don't need to actually create arguments, decide the direction. I feel that this is a value which I need across the board, across all the automation. I just go and run this automation, right? So automation is working, and now the expectation is from the second sequence, I am getting a value that hello, I am a global variable, right? So that's how global variable works, right? So I hope you guys understanding what exactly is a global variable. Let me know in the comments. Do you guys find the global variable interesting? Yes or no? Do you think that it would be helpful, the global variable thing? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine. So what else I can do in this newer version? Okay. So I have this variable which is created global variable. Okay. Now there is something which I want to talk about the global variable. Once the global variable is created, okay, you cannot update it back to a normal variable. Once a variable is created at global variable, you cannot change the data type, you cannot change the scope. You can definitely update the value, but you cannot change the other parameters. You can always delete it, right? But for the other variable, let's say if I go to the main sequence where we have a lot of variables, right? These variables, if I want to edit this variable, I just right click on it and I say edit the variable, rename the variable, right? Common option. I can always change the data type to Boolean. I can change the name, everything. But with the global variable, you don't get any option. If I say edit variable, I get only option to edit the value. You cannot edit the scope, type, or anything, right? So this you need to remember when you create the global variable. One interesting thing here is, let's say tomorrow I have a requirement. I require this age variable to be global. I just come here and set it to global. But remember, as soon as you set it global, there is no turning back, right? I cannot turn it back to a normal variable, right? So that is the thing you need to remember when you are working with a global variables. Okay. What else we have? How I can delete the arguments? Absolutely simple. Right click and delete the variable. Gone. Okay. In the previous version of UiPath, in the older version, I would say, we have something where you can actually convert the variables to argument, argument to variables, right? That same option is available here as well. What does that mean? I have created this variable called str name. During the development, I realized, oh, I should have created it as an argument. Do I need to rewrite the automation? The answer is no. Right click on it and say convert to argument. Convert it to argument. Str name. Again, you want to convert it to variable, right click and convert to variable. That option is always available with you. You can always convert from variables to argument, arguments to variable, and vice versa is also true. Okay. One interesting thing about this thing here is that was also available in the older version, but this just I wanted to show. For example, I use an assign activity here. Okay. And I am in the second sequence. And I just assign, I just use the variable. Okay, I just provide my name here. Okay, this is the variable which I have used. Now, as of now, this is a single, I have two sequences. Think it as a very large IT scale automation, transactional processes, lot of code written. I wanted to know which all places my variable is getting used. right? Which all places this variable is getting used, or let's say this variable or this variable. I simply go here, right click on it, and you have an option which called find references. If I click on find references, it will search for the entire project and it will tell you that Mukesh, your variable is used in the main sequence, first sequence, and this is the activity. Double click on it and it should directly take you to the activity which is here, right? So it is actually, you don't need to find where all my variable is getting used. This you can always go and use here. And this option remains untouched, right? I have created a lot of variables. I'm no longer using it. Remove unused variables, argument dependencies, imports, everything can be done from here. Okay. Now, apart from this, you always has an option to copy paste the variables. I have these variables which I have set default value scope. I require one more variable. Right click on it, copy, right click and just do a paste. The same variable will be copied and you can change the settings, parameters, everything, whatever you like, right? Like this. So copy pasting of variables argument also is available in this window. Okay. Annotation is something which as a developer, we all should use, and that is a good practice. So for example, I have created this variable. I am the developer, so I know, right? But what is a good practice? As a good practice, I would always like to add something called annotation. And I would say that this is a name argument, anything, right? Now you would see here, this is an annotation which is coming. Now anybody who is working on this, if you just go and pin this, whenever they open this one, you would see that this is a name argument, right? So people actually understand that, yes, this is the purpose that why this variable or the argument has been created. You should always write the annotation on the top of the sequences as well, right? So now if you want to write it on the top of variables, you just have to right click on here and add the annotation. Similar to add, you can always remove the annotations as well. Okay. What else? UiPath has this time, you would see in this window with variable and argument, there is something which is called constants. Now, what exactly is a constant? So the people who are coming from a .NET or a C# background, they would actually be able to relate. This is the value which will not change across the automation. For example, I am working on an automation and I want to create a value such as the name of the company, right? The name of the company will not change. So I can create a constant value here, company name. When creating the constant, you would see that you can only create constant of this data type. You do not have the liberty to create constant of the entire type which you have during the variables or the argument. You can have only this number, true, false, decimal, duration, and all those bits, right? So let's say I have this company name. My company name is UiPath. And I believe that when I am running this automation, my company name is going to be constant. I have created this constant value. And now what would happen? UiPath will lock this constant throughout the project. I cannot change the constant value. If you attempt to do that, it won't allow. So for example, company name, right? If I just go here and type company name, which is this, you would see it is a read-only property of global constant. I just select it here and you are getting an error because it is a constant which you cannot change, right? But the global variables can be updated, right? So don't get confused with the global variables and the constant. Global variable, if you see here, global var, I can go here and I say global variable. You can update the global variable, but you cannot update the constants, right? The second difference is when you create a global variable, you have the entire list which is populating. Constant, you only have the limited list available. Okay, so that also is available in this panel. Okay, you have variables, arguments, constant. Let's uncheck the variables, argument, constant, and let me show you what else you have here, right? If you go to this thing, processes, assets, and queues, these are all the bits which are coming when you are connected to the orchestrator. So for me, I am connected to cloud.uipath.com and I am connected to admin folder. Once I am connected here, I can see all the assets which are available in my orchestrator, all the processes which are available, all the queues which are available. Now, what should I do with this, right? For example, I want to use this credential asset. And when I just click on it and drag it into the canvas, automation canvas, UiPath will automatically ask me what is the type of activity you want to do with this, and the correct activity will be populated, right? So for the asset, we can have get asset, set asset, get credential, anything, right? So if I just populate it here, you would see I am getting an option from the top that what do you want to do? I say I want to get the credential. So this activity is now automatically populated for me, admin folder taken from my folder, asset name, which is the asset name which we have created, right? What else you can do with this one? Email credential. I want to just copy the name, right click on it and you have an option of copy. If you select copy, this is now copied to the clipboard and you can use it anywhere in the automation like this. If you go to any other asset, any process, anything on the UiPath canvas in the resources list, just right click on it and you have this option which is called view asset. Click on it and it will directly navigate you to the cloud.uipath.com or whichever orchestrator you are connected to, and it will display you this asset directly on the page, right? So let it load here. Meanwhile, it is loading. Okay, so that option was available here. You can just right click on it and click on view asset. That same is applicable to the processes as well, right? I have this process which is HR offer letter dispatcher. Right click on it, view the process. It will take you to the orchestrator. Applies same for the queues. When you drag and drop something on the queue, it will tell you what do you want to do with the queue. You want to get the queue item, add it, bulk queue add. Whichever you select, it will pre-populate the values for you, and then that speed ups your development, right? So these all properties panels are available in here. So that was processes, assets, and queues, right? So if it has just opened I have clicked on the view asset. So you would notice it is taking me to the orchestrator, and it will directly take me to the asset page and directly to the asset also. See, email credential. I don't have to come log into the orchestrator, search it. I just go there, click it and update it. Let's say I created a new asset here and that asset is not visible here because of some lag issue. You can always go here and click on this button which says refresh, and that will refresh your entire data manager. It will fetch everything and it should be visible to you here. Okay. What else we have here? Connections. You can have connection, you can have entities, right? The data service entities. If in case you are using any persistent data storage, such as I have two data services which I have created. One is for the student and system user. You can use the same from this window. The last one is the namespaces, right? This is this panel, imports. Previously, you used to have this import panel here. It was difficult to navigate. You need to add it here, select the namespace, and then you need to add it, right? You can always ignore this and you have this namespaces available here. To add a new namespace, right click, add a namespace. Give the namespace and the new namespace would be directly imported, right? So these are the features which are available in the data manager, and that is a pretty interesting one, right? So I hope you are following along and you are getting that how exactly this thing is speeding up your development task. Okay. So now the next, what I'm going to pull here is I'm going to pull up my presentation again. Okay. And I'll just swap this view. So these are all the things which we have discussed via the demo. The next improvement here, which you would see, you would have noticed that many times there was an old solution which you created, and then you have created a new solution. There, the activity was missing, and as a developer, it was very difficult for you to analyze that which activity is missing and what is the thing which is missing, right? Now, with this new update, UiPath has worked on this and it would actually tell you that which activity is missing. So for example, here, you can see that there is some issue with the right cell. Here it is some issue with the Excel application scope, right? Beside this, for the missing activity, UiPath will also expose the arguments and the property value so that you can actually know that yes, which activity was missing. Right? So if you see here, this activity was missing here. And if you click on that, UiPath is showing this error that this activity is either missing, could not be loaded properly. And you can actually see that the activity is right cell. You don't have to guess, right? So the developer who are coming from the older version, you might understand this challenge that when you open the older version, it was difficult, right? So this is what is the new available in the 2022.10 release, applicable to Studio as well as Studio X. Okay. There is an enhanced design of the Studio. There are a lot of keyboard shortcuts which are available. When you talk about the enhanced design, you would see there is a fresh look and feel of color combination, right? So let me just go back to my UiPath Studio. If you see here, this is one sequence coming in gray, the other one coming in blue, right? So if I just do it something like this, so that this color combination actually help you when you write a nested sequence, right? So if I just drag and drop it here, right? If you notice here, now you are getting a different color combination. Rich color experience is available in the newer version, right? There are a lot of keyboard shortcuts which are introduced. Let me just go back to my presentation here. Okay. I'll just swap my presentation view, right? Enhance activity design, fresh look and feel for the header and the color support. It is relevant to all the project, all the package version, right? You have some of the new keyword shortcuts which are available. Text editor, right? This is something interesting, right? Previously, if you guys remember, whenever you have some code file, right? JSON file or any C# file, we used to go back to the project and then open it. With this update, let's say I have this file which is called project.json file, right? I can simply double click on this project.json file and it will open in this built-in nice editor, right? Feels like a C#, right? So you can actually go and read everything, do it here. So this is also available in the 2022.10 release. Okay, so these are some of the updates which I found out pretty interesting. There is an update which has happened on the complete product lifecycle of UiPath. Everything has been updated and everything has something new to try, right? Now the question arises how I can see that. To answer the question, here are the two links, right? The first one is you can go and read the forward 5 best bits from anywhere using this URL. The second thing is you want to go to the 2022.10 release update. UiPath has this fixed dedicated course in UiPath Academy. The link is available here. You just go and see all the updates, all the products which have, right? So that is what I wanted to cover today. What is the next thing? You can go to Academy forum and you can join us for the next community events. So thank you for watching. That is all I wanted to cover. Open for any questions if you guys have, and happy to connect you over the social media website, anywhere if you guys are available, happy to connect with you.
And if
Okay,
anybody
so
has any questions, feel free to open up your mics.
yep.
And some of this, Mukesh, just to add to what you just shared, I think we started, especially the concept of global variable, and that's a key. I think it's definitely a big game changer. Like when you, and I've seen that in some of my big automations where we have multiple sub activities and multiple data flows from one activity to the other, one workflow to the another workflow, having some global variables defined and then and clearly sequencing it. I think it's definitely a big, it's a small thing, but it's a big help from keeping your automation more synchronized and organize it. I think it's definitely a big change. And then this whole data manager concept where you can organize everything under one panel and get into assets and orchestrator by clicking into that. I think those are definitely, I think, a big improvements which has come up now in the 2022-10 release.
Yes, absolutely, Rahul. So if you just go to that course, it has whole lot of improvements in Automation Hub, Insights, everything has got updated, right? So there's a lot to explore in 2022.10. Yeah.
This is great. No, I think thank you for your time, Mukesh. Really appreciate you spending time on that, and it's a great insight into that.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Hi. Do we have any questions? Okay. We don't have anything. Yeah.
Thank you, Mukesh and Rahul.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.